My grandmother's $150 million hotel, a gift just for me. My mother-in-law and my husband instantly declared, tomorrow, we're seizing full control of the hotel. If you dare object, you'll be divorced. A tranquil tea, that instant. I erupted in laughter and... Can you imagine being told, just moments after your grandmother gifts you a breathtaking $150 million hotel, that your own husband and mother-in-law plan to just take it from you? That's what happened to me. And when I finally dared to say, absolutely not, I'm the boss now, my husband looked me dead in the eyes and threatened to divorce me. My mother-in-law then threw me out of my own home. They thought they had won, but they had no idea my grandmother was about to drop a second bombshell that would leave them utterly speechless. It was my 27th birthday, and I was at the Alien Garden, this incredibly luxurious restaurant. The air was crisp, and a soft, classical piano melody floated through the room, mixing with the gentle clinking of forks against expensive china. I sat there, trying to look composed in my custom-tailored suit. Across from me was my husband, Michael. He looked handsome in his designer suit, but his gaze kept drifting to his phone, almost glued to it. Next to him was his mother, Sharon. She was adorned with a huge pearl necklace and a shiny gold bracelet that flashed every time she reached for another piece of lobster on her plate. My grandmother, Eleanor, sat beside me. She was my rock, my calm in every storm. She exuded this quiet authority, dressed in understated elegance, yet everyone in the room seemed to bend to her will. This whole celebration was her idea. The dinner itself was awkward. Sharon had never truly liked me. In her eyes, I was just a stay-at-home wife with no ambition, someone who'd simply gotten lucky marrying her successful son, Michael. They often forgot that Eleanor, my grandmother, was the one who provided the seed money for Michael's so-called successful import-export firm. Chloe, Sharon chirped, a fake smile plastered on her face. For someone who's home all day, you certainly keep yourself in good shape, don't you? It sounded like a compliment, but her tone was a venomous dig. Michael let out a small, nervous laugh. Mom, please. I forced a smile, swallowing the bitterness. Thank you, Sharon. I guess I move around the house a lot, I replied, trying to sound polite. My grandmother just watched, her sharp eyes missing nothing. After dessert, Eleanor softly cleared her throat. The piano seemed to pause, as if waiting for her. Today, she began, her voice quiet but filling the room. We're here to celebrate my granddaughter Chloe's birthday. 27 is a special age. It's an age where a mature woman knows what she wants and is ready to take on great responsibilities. Sharon subtly rolled her eyes. I saw it. Michael, on the other hand, just smiled, probably thinking I was about to get another envelope of cash or a new watch. Then Eleanor reached into her purse. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't car keys. It was a deep mahogany leather portfolio. She handed it to me across the table. For your hands, Chloe, she said gently. My heart started to pound. What was this? I opened the portfolio. Inside were legal documents, deeds, stacks of papers. Stamped on the first page in bold, beautiful letters was the name, the Eleanor Grand Hotel. Grandma, what is this? I whispered, my voice barely there. Your birthday present, my girl, Eleanor smiled. It's the new hotel downtown. All in your name. In monetary terms, it's worth about $150 million. Silence. Deafening silence. A spoon dropped by a waiter across the room sounded like a gong. I was frozen. My eyes widened, darting from the documents in my hands to my grandmother's serene face. Tears started to well up. This wasn't just a gift, this was insane. I looked at Michael. His reaction. I'll remember it forever. His face went from pale to a furious red, his jaw tightening. His phone, which he'd been clutching, fell from his hand into his lap, but his eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on his mother. Sharon's face was even worse. The fake smile had vanished, replaced by an expression of pure shock she couldn't hide. Her mouth hung slightly open. The glint in her eyes wasn't happiness for me. It was a flash of pure greed, surprise, and anger, as if this gift were a personal insult to her. Congratulations, Chloe, Sharon whispered hoarsely, finally breaking the silence. Your grandmother is very generous. The word generous was laced with such a strange, cutting emphasis. Michael quickly picked up his phone, then let out a forced, unnatural laugh. $150 million. Huh. Grandma, are you serious? This is incredible, honey. He grabbed my hand, but his grip was cold, too tight, like he wasn't holding his wife's hand, but a piece of property. I was too overwhelmed to react, too stunned. I could only look at Eleanor. Grandma, this is too much. I can't accept it. Eleanor placed her hand over mine, resting on the portfolio. You can and you will. It's time you have what you deserve. I trust you. The rest of the dinner passed in a strange haze. Sharon and Michael became eerily quiet. They barely spoke, but I could see them exchanging constant glances, tense whispers, whenever I pretended to look away. The celebratory atmosphere had vanished, replaced by a thick, suffocating tension. As we prepared to leave, I hugged my grandmother tightly. I felt safe in her arms, but beneath that safety, an inexplicable fear stirred. Eleanor hugged me back, then whispered something so low only I could hear. Be careful, my girl. This gift is a test. A test. My grandmother knew what was coming. That sent a shiver down my spine. The drive home felt interminable. Not a single word was spoken in the luxury car Michael was driving. The radio was off. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the air conditioner. I clutched the mahogany portfolio to my chest like a shield. I could feel the anger radiating off Michael. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He wouldn't even look at me. In the back seat, Sharon remained silent too, but I could see in the rearview mirror that she was staring straight ahead, her lips pressed into a thin, cruel line. The tension in that car was so thick, I found it hard to breathe. I tried to speak. Michael, about the hotel. He cut me off abruptly. His voice was flat cold. We'll talk at home. I fell silent instantly. This wasn't the Michael I knew. Or maybe this was the real Michael. We lived in a massive house in an exclusive gated community. It was beautiful, but it had never felt like mine. Every piece of furniture had been chosen by Sharon. Every rule had been set by Sharon. Even my daily schedule seemed to need her tacit approval. Michael parked the car in the garage. When the engine shut off, an eerie silence returned. Inside, Michael said, his tone like a superior giving an order. We walked into the house. The living room lights were on. Sharon didn't retreat to her guest suite, as she usually did. Instead, she marched straight to the main sofa and sat down, straight-backed, like a queen ready to preside over a trial. She dropped her expensive purse on the table with a loud thud. Michael stood beside his mother, arms crossed, glaring at me. I remained in the middle of the room, still clutching the portfolio, feeling like the accused. Sharon was the first to speak. Her voice was no longer masked with false politeness. It's completely insane, she hissed, giving such an expensive toy to a child who knows nothing. The insult hit me like a physical blow. A child who knows nothing. Do you think you can do anything with that hotel? She shouted, her voice rising. You can't even take care of your husband without my help. Michael remained silent, letting his mother attack me. That hotel, Sharon continued, should be a family business. We can't let Chloe, who knows nothing, manage so much money. Michael finally spoke, his tone meant to be that of a wise mediator, but it was painfully obvious whose side he was on. It's true, honey. My mother has more experience. This is for everyone's good. Think about it. We can expand the hotel. I could even leave my job and focus on it. Sharon's eyes gleamed with triumph. Good. Tomorrow, your husband and I will take over that hotel. I'll be the CFO and Michael will be the CEO. We're family after all. Then she looked at me with pure disdain. You know nothing about business. It's much more suitable for you to stay home and receive your monthly allowance. As I listened, a cold anger began to simmer inside me. It wasn't about the hotel anymore. It was about my dignity, which they had trampled on for years. My grandmother's whisper echoed in my mind. This gift is a test. I took a deep breath. I walked over and placed the portfolio on the table in front of Sharon, but I didn't let go of it. I looked my mother-in-law dead in the eye, then shifted my gaze to my husband. "Oh, absolutely not, Sharon," I said. My voice was low, but firm. Clear. Unwavering. The room fell into a sudden, shocked silence. Sharon and Michael looked stunned. They hadn't expected me to fight back. "What did you say?" Sharon asked, her voice rising an octave. "I said no," I repeated, this time louder. "That hotel is a gift to me. It's in my name, and my grandmother Eleanor gave it to me." I hugged the portfolio again. "I'm the boss now. I make all the decisions." I didn't know where this courage came from, but it felt incredibly liberating. Michael's face turned crimson with rage. He hadn't expected his docile wife to talk back to him. "How dare you speak to my mother like that, Chloe?" he shouted. "The money has gone to your head." "I'm just defending what's mine," I said calmly. "It's my hotel." Michael's anger erupted. The mask of the good, patient husband shattered. "Oh, you think you're so important now, the hotel owner?" He stepped forward and pointed a finger in my face. "Listen to me carefully. If you're going to act like this, if you refuse to be controlled by us, then we're getting a divorce." The threat hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Michael was so sure I'd be scared. So sure I wouldn't dare lose my status as his wife. "You want to be a divorce?" he continued in a mocking tone. "Who do you think will want a divorced woman like you?" The word divorce shocked me to my core. My heart ached, but I didn't cry. Instead, I saw him more clearly than ever before. This was my value in Michael's eyes. Sharon, seeing me stand still, felt a surge of triumph. She stood up too, attacking with renewed fury. "Insolent. Ungrateful. Shameless woman. You're nothing but a parasite in this family." She glared at me, pointing directly at the front door. "Get out of this house tonight. Get out with your hotel and never come back." The atmosphere settled. As soon as Sharon's last shout ended, I found myself alone, threatened with divorce by my husband and thrown out of my home by my mother-in-law, all on my birthday night. Sharon's shout echoed in the suddenly silent living room. "Out!" My ears were ringing. I stood there, stunned, looking at the two people who, until now, had been the closest in my life. The man threatening to make me a divorce and the woman kicking me out of my home. Something cold and hard formed in my heart, replacing the sharp pain from before. I didn't even cry. I just looked at Michael, then at Sharon. And for the first time, I saw them as they really were, two greedy people who had just seen their source of wealth, which Michael had taken from Eleanor, suddenly out of their grasp. Now, they saw me as a threat that had to be eliminated. The threat of divorce and eviction were their weapons to regain control. I was about to open my mouth, not even knowing what I was going to say. Maybe I would agree to leave. Maybe I would confront them. I didn't know. But before I could utter a single word, the sound of a key turning in the front door lock broke the tension. The sound was low, but in that tense silence, it sounded like the crack of a gunshot. Click. The heavy front door swung open. Michael and Sharon were startled. They expected me to be leaving through that door, not someone coming in. Eleanor stood on the threshold. Behind her were two burly men in black suits. Their faces were expressionless. Eleanor didn't look angry. She looked calm, and that calmness felt much more terrifying than anyone's anger in that room. She walked in, her flats making no noise on the marble floor. "Grandma?" My voice trembled. It was the first thing I had said since their threats. Sharon, who had been surprised that the door could be opened by someone else, quickly recovered, replacing her surprise with a new wave of anger. This was her stage, and Eleanor was interrupting. "Stay out of this, ma'am," Sharon yelled, feeling her authority as the lady of the house being threatened. "I'm disciplining this shameless daughter-in-law. She dares to talk back to her husband and mother-in-law." Sharon moved towards me, trying to grab my arm. "And I'm kicking her out of my son's house." Eleanor raised a hand. It was a small gesture, just her palm extended, but it was enough to make Sharon stop dead in her tracks. "Disciplining?" Eleanor repeated, her voice low but cutting. "Kicking her out?" Eleanor let out a small, dry, humorless laugh. "Sharon, you can't kick the owner out of her own house." That statement hung in the air. Sharon frowned, confused. "What are you talking about, you senile old woman?" "Of course, this house belongs to my son." Michael bought it. Michael, who had been silent all this time, started to sweat. He looked at his mother, at Eleanor, and at me. He knew exactly what Eleanor was about to say. His face was pale. "Grandma, please," Michael whispered, but Eleanor paid him no attention. Her eyes were fixed on Sharon. "Your son Michael's house?" Eleanor said, using Michael's full name, and he flinched. "Have you never been honest with your mother? Or have you been living a lie for so long that you've forgotten what the truth is?" Eleanor walked slowly around the luxurious sofa Sharon had chosen. This mansion, this luxurious 3-story house, and this exclusive community. "Sharon, did you ever ask Michael how he managed to put together a $3 million down payment when he had only been working for 2 years?" Sharon was silent, her eyes fixed on Michael, demanding an answer. Michael couldn't look at his mother. "It was a bonus from the company," he said weakly. "A bonus from the company?" Eleanor laughed again. "The company where Michael worked, that successful import-export firm. Sharon, do you know who the real owner of that company is?" Eleanor stopped in front of me and gave her trembling granddaughter a gentle pat on the shoulder. "That company, the luxury car Michael drives every day, and yes, even this house. It was all a wedding gift for Chloe, long before the hotel. Everything is in Chloe's name." The truth hit Sharon like a freight train. She staggered backward, clutching her chest. "No, it can't be. It's a lie. Tell me she's lying, Michael," she shrieked hysterically. But Michael could only hang his head. His fists were clenched. He couldn't deny it. His entire life of luxury, his pride as a successful man, turned out to be borrowed from his wife's grandmother. He had only been allowed to manage the assets of the wife he had now threatened to divorce. Eleanor looked at Michael coldly. "And you, Michael, you just threatened my granddaughter with divorce and insulted her by calling her a divorcee." Eleanor gestured to one of the men behind her. The man, who turned out to be the lawyer, Mr. Harrison, stepped forward and opened a folder he was carrying. "What did you think?" Eleanor continued, "that after you threatened her and your mother kicked her out, you could just keep the hotel?" Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, I am Mr. Harrison, the legal representative of Chloe's grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Vance." Eleanor's full name was mentioned to emphasize who the true owner of all this wealth was. The threat of divorce or separation that Mr. Miller just uttered has been heard by more than 2 witnesses in this room. That already has legal standing and can be a solid basis for a divorce filing. Sharon's jaw dropped. "Divorce? Who's talking about divorce? We didn't talk about divorce." Mr. Harrison looked at her expressionlessly. "My client's husband just yelled, 'We're getting a divorce.' My client, Mrs. Chloe Miller, has accepted those words as an intention to divorce." "No," Michael shouted, finally breaking out of his frozen state. "I didn't mean it. I was upset. Chloe, honey, it was an outburst." Eleanor interrupted him. "It's too late. My patience has run out. For years, I have kept silent as I watched my granddaughter be belittled in her own home, treated like a maid by you, Sharon, and betrayed by you, Michael, who instead of defending your wife, followed your mother's greed." Eleanor looked at me. "Granddaughter, bring that portfolio." Still in shock, I nodded and took the hotel portfolio I had left on the table. "And now," Eleanor said, her voice calm again, "this is my granddaughter Chloe's house, and you two are unwelcome guests." Sharon was trembling no longer with anger, but with fear. "You can't do this. This house is mine." "Prove it," Eleanor challenged her. "Call the police. Show them the deed to this house." "Oh, I'm sorry. I have the deed, and it's in Chloe's name." Hysteria erupted. Realizing that every word Eleanor said was true, Sharon no longer screamed at me. She turned and attacked her own son. "Michael, why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me live in this lie?" She beat Michael's chest uncontrollably. "You said you were just a parasite living off your wife. What kind of man are you, Michael?" Michael, his pride completely shattered, pushed his mother, who fell onto the sofa. "This is all your fault," Michael shouted, his face wet with sweat and tears of regret. "Your fault for never being satisfied, always comparing me to others, pushing me to want more, making me greedy. There was a time when I loved Chloe. I loved her." Eleanor snorted. "Your love was purely material, Michael." Sharon slumped on the sofa, howling like a wounded wolf. She wasn't sorry for her mistakes. She was sorry for the luxury she was about to lose. She turned and clung to the leg of the table as if embracing her property for the last time. No, this house is mine. I chose these curtains. I chose this sofa. You can't take it from me, she screamed. The scene was both pathetic and disgusting. I, who had been frozen all this time, finally found my voice. The sharp pain in my heart had gone numb. What remained was a deep, dense disappointment. I looked at Michael, the man I once loved, the man who had sworn to protect me at the altar. Now he seemed small and despicable. So all this time, all your actions, all those sweet words, were because I was the access to my grandmother's money? I whispered. Michael couldn't look me in the eye. He fell to his knees, not before me, but before Eleanor. Grandma, forgive me. Grandma, I was wrong. Please don't take everything from me. Don't divorce us. I promise I'll be a good husband to Chloe. I'll stand up to my mother. I promise. Sharon, hearing that, screamed. Ungrateful son. You're going to choose that woman over your own mother. Shut up, Mom. Michael yelled. Don't you realize we'll be on the street tonight? Mr. Harrison, ignoring the disgusting family drama, stepped forward again. Mrs. Miller. Mr. Miller. My client, Mrs. Chloe Miller, demands that you vacate her property immediately. Vacate? Sharon stood up. It's nighttime. Where will we sleep? That is not my client's concern, Mr. Harrison replied dryly. You have threatened and expelled the rightful owner. Your status now is that of trespassers. Chloe, Michael crawled, trying to grab my feet. Honey, please don't do this. This is our home. I stepped back as if Michael's touch could transmit poison. I looked at his face. The face I once adored now seemed strange, full of hypocrisy. I remembered all the nights Michael praised his mother's cooking over mine. I remembered all the times Michael bought his mother expensive purses while only giving me permission to buy new clothes on sale. And I remembered the threat of divorce and the insult of divorcee I had just heard. I took a deep breath, looked at Eleanor, who gave me strength, and nodded. I was the owner of the hotel. I was the owner of the house. I was the owner of my life. Mr. Harrison, I called out. My own voice surprised me. Strong and unwavering. Give them 15 minutes to collect their most important personal belongings. Michael and Sharon froze. The order had come from me, not Eleanor. Chloe, you don't mean it. Michael moaned. 15 minutes, I repeated. The other man in the suit, a private security guard, will accompany you to your rooms to ensure you pack your things and don't take anything that isn't yours. Sharon fainted this time, for real. Her eyes rolled back and her body slumped to the floor. Michael panicked. Mom, Chloe, please. My mother has fainted. Call an ambulance. I looked at my mother-in-law's slumped body, then at Michael. Grandma, do we have the number for 911? Eleanor smiled faintly. Mr. Harrison, handle it. The lawyer took out his phone. An ambulance is on its way. While they wait, Mr. Miller, your 15 minutes have already started. I suggest you start packing for yourself and your mother. Michael was torn between his fainted mother and the threat of losing everything. He howled in frustration. He ran up the stairs to his room, his former room, and the sounds of things being thrown around could be heard. The security guard followed him. I stayed in the living room. I didn't go up. I didn't want to see that room again. Soon, the paramedics arrived. At the same time, Michael came down with a large suitcase and his mother's small handbag. Sharon, surprisingly, regained consciousness as soon as the paramedics placed her on a stretcher. She started howling again. My things. My purses. My jewelry. The jewelry is in the bag, Mom. Michael whispered, embarrassed. They were escorted to the door. On the threshold, Michael stopped, turned, and looked at me, standing tall beside my grandmother, clutching the hotel portfolio. His face was wet with tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and defeat. Chloe, you'll regret this, he threatened weakly. I looked him straight in the eye. You said I would become a divorcee. You were wrong. My voice was cold and sharp. I will become a rich and free woman. And you, who threatened divorce in front of witnesses, will be left on the street." I nodded to the security guard. The door closed. The sound of the ambulance siren and Sharon's screams slowly faded away. I leaned against the door, feeling my legs suddenly turn to jelly. I looked at Eleanor, and finally, tears of relief and catharsis flowed. The morning came with a strange stillness. For the first time in 3 years of marriage, I woke up alone in my bedroom. There was no gentle snoring from Michael beside me. There were no knocks from Sharon on the door, ordering me to prepare breakfast quickly. What remained was the cold sheet on the other side of the bed, a gaping void. Sun pierced through the thick curtains, illuminating dust floating in the air. The silence was deafening. The large house, which previously felt suffocating and oppressive, now seemed empty and too large. I sat on the edge of the bed, hugging my knees. I felt relieved, of course, as if a weight had been lifted from my chest. But beneath that relief was a new fear. I was free. But what was I going to do with this freedom? I now owned a huge house and a hotel valued at hundreds of millions. I was the same Chloe that Sharon had accused of knowing nothing about business. I showered and dressed. When I went down to the dining room, I was greeted by the smell of freshly brewed coffee and toast. Eleanor was already sitting at the table, reading the morning paper as if nothing had happened the night before. "Good morning, granddaughter," Eleanor said, folding the newspaper. "Did you sleep well?" I smiled faintly and sat down. The housekeeper, who had worked in the house long before I got married, placed a plate with a light breakfast in front of me. She looked at me with a knowing smile. She clearly knew what had happened last night. "Grandma, I'm scared," I said frankly, my voice a whisper. "I don't know where to start. The hotel, the business. I really don't know anything." Just like Sharon said. Eleanor put down her coffee cup and took my hand. "Do you think I would have given a $150 million toy to someone who knows nothing?" Eleanor smiled mysteriously. "Chloe, do you remember 3 years ago when I asked you to organize the accounting books for the charitable foundation and you said they were too complicated?" "I remember, Grandma," I said. "The reports were a mess, and you left them impeccable," Eleanor continued. "And do you remember last year when I asked you to analyze the investment proposals from 3 startups and you said you didn't understand?" "I just chose the one with the clearest product that made the most sense," I said. "And that company is now worth triple," Eleanor said. "And remember when I asked you to review all the supplier contracts for our charities and you discovered a 20% overbilling?" I fell silent. I was beginning to understand everything. "I've been training you," Eleanor interrupted my thoughts. "I knew the true nature of Michael and his mother for a long time. I knew this day would come. I couldn't give you a fortune without also giving you the weapons to protect it. It's not that you know nothing, Chloe. It's that you haven't yet realized how much you know. You have a sharp business instinct. You are meticulous. And you're honest. That's more than enough." Eleanor's words were like pouring gasoline on a small flame inside me. The fear didn't disappear, but now it was accompanied by fierce determination. "Mr. Harrison will be here soon," Eleanor said. "We're going to the Eleanor Grand. It's time for the owner to greet her employees." An hour later, a black luxury sedan pulled up in front of the lobby of the Eleanor Grand Hotel. The building was imposing, the glass gleaming, reflecting the morning sun. It was the first time I had seen it up close. My heart pounded. When I walked in, flanked by Eleanor and Mr. Harrison, all the lobby staff bowed respectfully. They had been informed that the new owner was arriving. I, in a simple but elegant outfit, walked through the magnificent lobby with my head held high. We went straight to the main boardroom on the penthouse floor. All the department heads were already waiting. A dozen impeccably dressed men and women stood in unison as I entered. I sat in the main chair at the head of the table, with Eleanor on one side and Mr. Harrison on the other. The tension was palpable. I could feel their stares, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and a slight disdain. A young, meek-looking woman had suddenly become their boss. Mr. Harrison began, "Good morning, everyone. I present to you Miss Chloe Miller. She is the new owner and CEO of the Eleanor Grand Hotel." A middle-aged man, the one who looked most senior with a general manager name badge, cleared his throat. "Welcome, ma'am. I am Mr. Wallace, the general manager." All of us here are ready to help you adjust. The word adjust was spoken with a tone that implied I was an outsider, out of my depth. I smiled. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. I appreciate the gesture. Then I looked at each of the managers in the room. I won't beat around the bush. I know I'm new here, but this hotel is mine, and I intend to know everything that happens in it. My gaze fell on a man sitting next to Mr. Wallace, who was holding a tablet. Mr. Peterson, you're the finance manager, correct? The man named Peterson was a bit surprised that I knew his name. Yes, ma'am. I reviewed a brief financial report last night, I said, surprising everyone in the room. I noticed a rather large new expense item in the last 2 weeks, related to a company called Future Forward Consulting. Could you explain what this consultancy is for and why a year's worth of fees was paid up front? Mr. Peterson instantly broke into a cold sweat. He didn't expect the new owner to notice that detail so quickly. Mr. Wallace shot him a sharp look. It's a consultancy for operational efficiency, ma'am, Mr. Peterson stammered. Operational efficiency? I countered. My eyes, once soft, now seemed sharp. But another report shows that our operating costs increased by 5% last week. And as for Future Forward Consulting, I asked Mr. Harrison to check on it this morning. The company was registered only 2 weeks ago. The room went silent. Mr. Peterson's face turned white. He knew he was caught. Mr. Peterson, my voice was now soft but full of pressure. I'm not here to make enemies. I'm here to protect my assets. I'll ask you one more time. Who authorized this payment? Mr. Peterson swallowed hard, looked at Mr. Harrison, looked at Eleanor, who was watching him without blinking. He knew if he lied, his career would be over. Finally, he broke. I'm sorry, ma'am, he whispered in a trembling voice. The order came from Mr. Miller. The whole room held its breath. Mr. Miller? I repeated, feigning confusion on purpose. What authority does my husband have in this hotel? He said he represented the owning family. Mr. Peterson continued, now resigned. He said it was to secure, well, a portion of the assets before you took full control. He brought the contract and pressured me to process the payment that same day. He ordered me to create the fake consulting contract. This confession was like a bomb. I felt a chill of cold victory. This was my first step. I looked at all the managers. As of today, I said firmly, I am announcing a full external audit of all departments. And Mr. Peterson, thank you for your honesty. Please give Mr. Harrison all the documents related to Future Forward Consulting and all correspondence with Mr. Miller. While I was taking my first steps as the queen of the hotel, Michael and Sharon were experiencing their first real fall. The ambulance that had taken Sharon the night before, after an ER checkup determined she was perfectly fine, deemed it a false call and billed them the full cost. They didn't have that much cash. With what was left in Michael's wallet, they ended up renting a small, grimy motel room on the outskirts of the city that smelled of stale cigarette smoke and mothballs. The ceiling fan spun slowly, making a deafening screech. Sharon sat on the edge of the bed, still in the luxurious party dress from the night before, now dirty and wrinkled. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but the tears had dried up, replaced by a simmering anger. On the street. We're on the street, she whispered hoarsely. This is all your fault, Michael. Your fault for being so stupid. Why didn't you tell me everything belonged to Chloe? Michael paced the small room like a caged lion. His face was red. He had just tried to access his salary account from the company where he worked. The account was frozen. He tried to use his corporate credit card. Declined. Eleanor had blocked all his access. He truly had nothing. Shut up, Mom, Michael yelled in frustration. You think I knew this would happen? I thought I had her under control. I thought if I threatened her with divorce, she'd get scared. Turns out that old woman has brainwashed her. And now what? Sharon moaned. What are we going to eat? Where are we going to live? My jewelry, my purses. Everything is left in that house. Michael stopped pacing, his gaze fixed on the old laptop he had thrown on the bed, the only valuable electronic device he had brought besides his phone. A crazy, evil idea began to form in his mind. He still had one weapon left, something very personal. You're right, Mom, Michael said, his eyes gleaming with cunning. We can't just give up. She's insulted us. She's humiliated us. It's time to bring her to her knees. Sharon looked at her son. What are you planning? Chloe can keep the hotel, Michael whispered. But I have her past. He opened the laptop, an old, hidden folder. He still had old files, photos, and videos from their honeymoon. Moments when I wasn't as poised as I was now. There were photos of me on the beach in tank tops and shorts, videos of us laughing in the hotel room with my hair down. It wasn't pornographic, but in the public eye, for a woman who is now the CEO of a famous hotel, those photos were a scandal. It was a humiliation that could destroy my reputation. You're her husband, Sharon whispered, her eyes also gleaming. She now understood Michael's thinking. You have the right. Use it. Destroy her. Michael smiled, opened a messaging app, and sent a message directly to my number. You think you've won, don't you? You think you can throw my mother and me out like we're trash? You're very wrong, Chloe. And he attached a photo, a picture of me laughing by the pool with my hair down. I have many photos from our vacations. Photos that show what a CEO's wife is really like. I'm sure your new managers would love to see this. Transfer 50% of the hotel's value to my new account in 24 hours or everyone will see what a hypocrite you are. He pressed send. Michael leaned back, feeling victorious. He was sure I would be scared. He was sure I would do anything to protect my image as a good woman. In the penthouse of the Eleanor Grand Hotel, I had just finished a marathon meeting with the audit team. I was tired but satisfied. My phone buzzed. I opened it, thinking it was from Eleanor. My gaze froze on the screen, the photo, the memory, and the blackmail message beneath it. I felt my stomach churn. Nausea rose in my throat. This was different. This wasn't about money or the house. This was about my honor. I felt exposed. I felt dirty. I felt just as Michael wanted me to feel, weak and scared. My hands were shaking. I ran immediately to Eleanor's office next to her suite. Eleanor and Mr. Harrison were reviewing documents when I burst in without knocking. My face was pale. Grandma, I whispered, handing her the phone. Eleanor looked at the photo, then read the message. Her previously serene face hardened instantly. Wretch, she whispered, her voice full of venom. Mr. Harrison read it over Eleanor's shoulder. Grandma, what do I do? Do I give him what he wants? I don't want those photos, I started to cry. No, Eleanor said firmly. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Mr. Harrison, on the other hand, seemed calm. There was even a faint smile on his lips. Ma'am, please calm down, he said. Don't respond. Don't say anything, but Mr. Harrison, Mr. Harrison pointed to my phone. He has just given us the greatest gift he could offer. I and Eleanor looked at him confused. Your husband, Mr. Harrison continued, has just committed 2 serious felonies simultaneously, extortion and a severe violation of privacy laws for attempting to disseminate private content without permission. If we add the evidence we have from Mr. Peterson about the attempted embezzlement of hotel assets, our position in the divorce and in a criminal proceeding is unbeatable. He just handed us the rope to hang himself with. I stopped crying. My fear began to turn into a cold rage. So, what should I do? We will file for divorce today, Mr. Harrison explained. And we will file a police report for this blackmail attempt. Let him wait for the transfer that will never come. Let him get nervous. In his panic, he's sure to make another mistake. I took a deep breath, looked at Mr. Harrison, and looked at Eleanor. I nodded. Do it, Mr. Harrison, I said. My voice was now steady. Use everything necessary. I don't want to see his face again, except in a courtroom. This silence was much more terrifying than anger. She's ignoring us, Sharon whispered, her broken nails drumming on the old wooden table. How dare she? How dare she stay silent after what you sent her? Michael felt a nauseating wave of frustration. His last, personal, weapon against me hadn't worked. Or worse, I didn't care. With the initial information obtained from the finance manager, Mr. Peterson, the newly appointed team of external auditors went to work. They were like a team of surgeons, dissecting the layers of the hotel's operations, and what they found was shocking. Michael's attempt to embezzle funds through a shell company was just the tip of the iceberg. This company, after investigation, transferred a monthly commission to a private account in the name of Mr. Wallace's wife. Michael, in his hasty greed, had simply taken advantage of an existing system of corruption. He and Mr. Wallace were two parasites feasting on the same body, the hotel. That afternoon, I called Mr. Wallace to my office. Mr. Harrison and two auditors were waiting for him. Mr. Wallace, I greeted him calmly. I wanted to ask you about our contract with Vega Foods. The man still tried to force a smile, but it was awkward. Of course, ma'am. They're our best suppliers. Perhaps the best at overbilling, I retorted. The auditor presented a pile of evidence: the inflated invoices, the bank transfer records to his relative's account, and the testimony of the head chef, who had complained that the quality of the products was often below expectations. Mr. Wallace's face went from white to ashen. He knew he was finished. This is a misunderstanding. This is theft, I interrupted him. My voice was icy. Mr. Wallace, you are terminated, effective immediately and without severance. Mr. Harrison will proceed with a criminal complaint for embezzlement of company funds. Hand over your access card. Mr. Wallace slumped in his chair. His downfall, so swift and decisive, sent a message throughout the hotel. The old era was over. Meanwhile, in the dingy motel room, time continued to pass. The 24 hours were up. Michael, in a fit of blind rage, made his second fatal mistake. She thinks I'm kidding, he growled. He opened a new, anonymous social media account. He posted one photo from his collection. The photo was blurry, showing only my back with slightly damp hair. He added a caption: "Curious to see the real face of the CEO of the Eleanor Grand Hotel? This is just the beginning." And he tagged the location of the Eleanor Grand Hotel. "Your time is up, Chloe. Get ready to be famous." He sent a new message to me, attaching the link to the account. But he didn't know that Eleanor's digital security team was waiting for him. Within minutes, the account was mass-reported and suspended by the platform. The photo disappeared before almost anyone could see it. That evening, the private investigator, Mr. Morales, met with Eleanor again. He carried a thin folder. "As you suspected, ma'am," he said quietly, "Sharon has serious problems. Gambling debts. It started with small-time card games, and then she got into high-stakes poker games. She lost a lot. To cover it, she borrowed money from loan sharks." Eleanor listened intently. "What is the total principal she owes to 3 different lenders?" "Around $3 million. She planned to use the hotel," Eleanor concluded. "She wanted to turn my granddaughter's hotel into her personal ATM to pay off her gambling debts." "There's more, ma'am," Mr. Morales continued. "Those creditors are not ordinary people. They gave Sharon a final deadline. The deadline was yesterday. They are desperately looking for her." Eleanor looked at the report in her hands. The address of the motel was there. Mr. Morales had found them. "They know Sharon has lost her source of money," Mr. Morales whispered. "They won't be playing games." Eleanor was silent for a moment, then looked at Mr. Morales. "Good. It's time for the creditors to know where she's hiding." The war was launched on 2 different fronts. Early in the morning, Mr. Harrison, dressed in his finest suit, stepped out of his car in front of the city's police precinct. He did not come empty-handed. He carried a thick folder with an official complaint filed on my behalf. The accusations were clear: attempted extortion, a serious violation of privacy laws regarding the dissemination of private content, and defamation. The evidence was irrefutable. There were screenshots of Michael's first blackmail message. There was the private photo of me he had sent. There was the link to the now-closed anonymous social media account that constituted the second threat. The police, seeing the prominent Vance name behind the complaint and the solid digital evidence, acted immediately. This was a priority case. An arrest warrant for Michael was processed immediately. At the same time, in family court, another of Mr. Harrison's legal teams was filing for divorce. The divorce papers were even thicker. They contained a full transcript of my birthday night with Michael's explicit declaration of divorce heard by 3 witnesses. Added to this was the evidence of the attempted embezzlement of hotel assets obtained from Mr. Peterson, and as the final nail in the coffin of that marriage, a copy of the police report for blackmail. I demanded a swift divorce and that Michael have no right to a single cent of the marital assets, as he had committed a grave betrayal and criminal acts against his wife. The legal process, which would normally take months, was fast-tracked thanks to the surprisingly solid evidence. On a third, darker, lawless front, Eleanor made her move through Mr. Morales. An anonymous message was sent from a burner phone. The message was short, sent to a number known to be that of the lieutenant of one of the city's biggest loan sharks. The content: Sharon Rose Motel, room 207, Hawthorne Avenue with her son. The message was sent. The phone was broken and thrown into a river. Eleanor washed her hands of it and went back to her morning tea. The bait was set. Room 207 of the Rose Motel was hell. Michael and Sharon were screaming at each other. "Idiot! Idiot!" Sharon yelled, throwing an old pillow at Michael. "Your plan has completely failed. The account is gone. Nobody saw it. Now we have nothing. You've ruined everything." "I've ruined it?" Michael retorted just as loudly. "Look at yourself. If you hadn't been so greedy that night, if you had just kept your mouth shut, we could have slowly taken over the hotel. But no, you had to scream like a madwoman. You ruined everything. You dare to blame your mother?" At the height of their argument, there was no knock on their room door. The door was kicked off its hinges. Crack. 3 large, rough-looking men entered the small room. The smell of alcohol and tobacco instantly filled the space. Sharon let out a scream. She recognized the leader's face immediately. "Chateau. Chateau," she stammered, trembling. The man called Chateau smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "Ah, we finally found you, Sharon. You've been hard to find. I thought you had moved into a luxury house." His eyes scanned the miserable motel room with contempt. "You owe us a lot of money." Michael, who had been frozen with fear at first, tried to react. "Hey, leave my mother alone. Who are you?" Chateau turned to Michael, looking him up and down. "Oh, so this is your new investment, Sharon. This is your son you said was so successful." Another man pushed Michael against the wall. "So, you're the son? Good. Then you'll pay your mother's debt." "What debt?" Michael asked in a trembling voice. Chateau's eyes gleamed. He looked at Michael. So that was the collateral. You have a hotel, huh?" "It's a lie," Michael yelled, panicking. Just as Chateau's man was about to grab Michael, the already broken door was knocked down again. This time, it was uniformed police officers entering with shields and aiming their guns. "Police, don't move. Drop your weapons." The scene was chaos. The loan sharks were surprised. The police, too. They had come for a blackmail suspect, but found 3 alleged loan sharks in the middle of what looked like a kidnapping. The loan sharks, armed only with pocket knives, immediately surrendered to the firearms. They were handcuffed. A police officer approached Michael. "Mr. Michael Miller, you are under arrest for attempted extortion and violation of privacy laws." The officer read the warrant. A second pair of handcuffs clicked shut on Michael's wrists. Michael looked desperately at his mother, who was now being questioned by another officer about her connection to the loan shark gang. She looked back at him with empty eyes. "Michael," Sharon moaned. "This is all your fault." Michael's anger and despair exploded. "It's your greed that has ruined us." Sharon didn't get angry hearing that. She just laughed. A dry, hoarse, desperate laugh. "Ruined." "Yes, Michael, we're ruined." The news broke that same afternoon. Family drama at the Eleanor Grand. CEO's ex-husband arrested for blackmail. Mother with million-dollar debts to loan sharks. Karma was served cold to the public. The divorce trial was a public spectacle. Since the news of Michael's arrest broke, the media had relentlessly focused on the Miller family drama. Journalists crowded the family court courtyard. Their cameras, like a flock of vultures, competed for a photo. I arrived promptly at 9 a.m. I didn't hide behind sunglasses or masks. I got out of my car dressed in an impeccable ivory pantsuit, and I walked with my head held high through the crowd. At my side were a serene Eleanor and Mr. Harrison with a thick briefcase. I did not lower my head. My eyes looked straight ahead, past the dazzling camera flashes and the shouts of journalists chanting my name. I entered the courthouse not as a victim, but as the CEO of a company. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was cold and formal. In the defendant's box, across from me, sat Michael. The contrast was painfully clear. Michael no longer wore expensive suits or luxury watches. He wore an orange prison jumpsuit. His face was pale and unshaven. He looked utterly defeated. The judge, a wise-looking middle-aged woman, began the trial. Given the nature of the case, with overwhelmingly solid evidence and a pending criminal case, the trial was swift. Mr. Harrison stood up. He didn't need to say much. He just presented the evidence, one by one, methodically. Your Honor, his voice was calm and clear. We present our case based on the defendant's initial declaration of divorce. The defendant consciously expressed his intention to divorce my client, Mrs. Chloe Miller, in front of 3 witnesses. Mr. Harrison called Eleanor and one of the men in suits who had accompanied her that night as witnesses who testified under oath. Second, Mr. Harrison continued, it is proven that the defendant committed a grave act of betrayal by conspiring with his mother, Mrs. Sharon Miller, to attempt to embezzle my client's assets. He presented a second file. Inside was the written testimony of the finance manager, Mr. Peterson, and a copy of the fake Future Forward Consulting contract. And third, Your Honor, Mr. Harrison's voice grew graver. Even after being expelled from my client's property, the defendant proceeded to commit the crimes of extortion and violation of privacy laws. He presented a third file. Inside was a copy of the police report, screenshots of the blackmail messages, and the private photo of me presented as evidence. A murmur of surprise ran through the courtroom. The judge read the documents. A deep furrow formed on her forehead. She looked at Michael coldly. Defendant, do you wish to refute this evidence? Michael trembled. He looked at me. I met his gaze. My eyes were serene, without hatred or love, only emptiness. It's a lie, he mumbled. It's all a lie. She brainwashed me. She from the back of the courtroom. Sharon stood up and screamed. He's right. That woman is a witch. She has brainwashed him. The scene became chaotic. The judge slammed her gavel. Silence. Bailiff. Remove that spectator from the courtroom. Sharon fell back into her seat. Her body trembled violently. Michael continued to ramble. Chloe, please don't divorce me. I love you. Don't ruin my life. But it was too late. The judge cleared her throat and looked at Michael with an expression of disgust. Defendant, not only have you failed as a husband, but also as a human being. The court's decision is as follows. 1. The divorce between Chloe Miller and Michael Miller is granted, effective immediately. The first bang of the gavel sealed it. 2. The judge continued, since this divorce is based on the grave fault and crimes committed by the defendant, it is declared that the defendant's right to any marital property is completely nullified. The second bang of the gavel was the final nail in Michael's coffin. He got not 1 cent. In the back row, Sharon howled hysterically. She knew it was the end. Michael slumped, powerless. His handcuffs clinked. He was nothing anymore. No wife, no house, no company, no fortune. All he had left was an orange prison jumpsuit and a criminal case waiting for him. I closed my eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. I didn't feel victory. I just felt freedom. I stood up, gave a respectful nod to the judge, and turned around. I walked out of the courtroom without looking back. I didn't need to see Michael being dragged away by the guards. I didn't need to hear Sharon's howls screaming my name. Outside, the camera flashes erupted again, but this time I stopped. I stood in front of dozens of microphones. Today, I said, my voice clear and broadcast across the country. Justice has been served. The legal system has protected me. Thank you. A journalist shouted, Miss Miller, do you have any message for your ex-husband? I looked directly at the camera. He is no longer my husband. 2 years later, I was no longer just the owner of the Eleanor Grand. My photo graced the covers of business magazines, not as a victim or a rich divorcee, but as the innovative CEO of the year. I had completely revamped the hotel's management, promoting the honest Mr. Peterson to the new CFO and building a solid team based on integrity, not nepotism. The hotel was now building 3 new branches in Miami and Aspen. That day, I was on the podium in the main ballroom of my hotel. Hundreds of VIPs, officials, and journalists attended. I was no longer wearing a rigid suit. I wore a modern designer pantsuit that radiated elegance. I wasn't inaugurating a new hotel. Today, I was launching the Eleanor Vance Foundation for Women. I am here, my voice resonated in the room, not just as a CEO. I am here as a woman who once felt fear and helplessness. I was threatened. I was belittled. But I learned that our greatest strength is not in the absence of fear, but in facing it. This foundation will provide legal aid, business mentorship, and a safe haven for women who find themselves in situations where they feel they have no voice. Because every woman deserves to be the CEO of her own life. The room erupted in applause. In the front row, Eleanor watched her granddaughter, her eyes shining with pride. I had not only passed the test, I had redefined it. In a forgotten, sordid corner of the city, a scene of cruel contrast was unfolding. In the visiting room of a prison that smelled of cheap disinfectant and despair, Michael sat behind a thick pane of glass. He was thin now, his gaze empty. The 5-year sentence he received for extortion and attempted fraud had taken what was left of his spirit. An old woman sat on the other side of the glass, holding the phone receiver with trembling hands. It was Sharon. Her hair was gray, her face lined with a bitterness that went beyond age. She had lost her house, her social status, and her son. After the loan sharks were arrested, their ledgers had implicated her, and she had received a suspended sentence and a massive fine that she was paying off by working as a dishwasher in a greasy spoon diner. It's her fault. Sharon hissed into the phone. That woman took everything from us. If you had just stopped blaming others, Mom, Michael replied, his voice dull. This is all because of your greed, too. A $3 million gambling debt? You were crazy. You dragged me into this hell. Ungrateful son. Sharon shrieked, banging on the glass. A guard immediately yelled, visiting time is over. The line went dead. Michael was dragged back to his cell. Sharon stumbled out of the prison. She went back to the diner where she worked. The smell of stew and sweat hit her nose. She entered the dirty back kitchen and continued scrubbing the pile of dirty dishes. As she scoured a burnt pot with steel wool, the evening news came on the old TV in the corner of the restaurant. Sharon looked up distractedly, and on the screen, she saw her. She saw a radiant Chloe, a beautiful Chloe. I was being interviewed about the launch of my new foundation. Miss Miller, you're an inspiration, the host said. Sharon froze. Her hand holding the steel wool stopped moving. She looked at the woman on the screen, the woman she once called ignorant. The woman she had kicked out. The woman who now had everything she had ever dreamed of. While she, Sharon, had nothing but a pile of dirty dishes and an eternal regret. She didn't cry. Her tears had already dried. What an incredible journey of resilience and justice, right? I'd love to know what you think. If you were in Chloe's shoes at the very beginning, when Sharon and Michael demanded the hotel, what would your immediate reaction have been? Let me know in the comments below.